Reporting. Today it's my pleasure to introduce you to Chris Robinson, Staff Software Engineer of REST Open Concert and IBM IoT. With that, I'll let you take it away, Chris.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. I really think that this is going to be a good session because a lot of the questions that I was able to pull together actually came from a lot of you, which is great. I love the interaction. Let's go ahead and get started. The next slide. All right, so basically, these are the 10 questions that either I was sent or that I pulled based on a lot of questions we get from clients and on forums, but a lot of them I got from people actually submitting them to me, asking me questions. So that's really great. The first one, what is the Jazz Reporting Server? I think that's kind of a softball one. A lot of us probably already know what that is, but that is actually one that I got just basically wanting more information on what it is, what it's all about. So okay, let's go ahead and jump into it. So what is the Jazz Reporting Service? It's a solution that was introduced in CLM 5.0. Basically, it improved upon what we were doing in RRDI, and it provides better data, better metrics, and the ability to easily build reports, because that's kind of something that we had to deal with a while back. Is you usually had an actual report expert who was focused on building queries and that information and a lot of that information. And so by having the report builder or JRS, that takes a lot of that away because it does it automatically by just using the user interface. As in reporting in general, it helps your business run smoother, quicker, more efficiently, and makes it makes in today's environment, we get so much data thrown at us all day long, and so having our reporting is becoming a more and more important thing for us to have, is to organize all that data and use it in an efficient way, and that's what Jazz Reporting Service is, and that's what it is going to be one of our major things moving forward. It's just basically taking that data, analyzing it, and creating clear and concise reports that can be used for and even overall scope of all our projects throughout the CLM. And that's going to be increasing more and more down the line, because we're going to be integrating more products into to be able to be accessed by the Jazz Reporting Service, which is going to be very good. All right, next, Andrea. So this is one that was posed to me. This is actually kind of an action item for me still. Basically, we wanted to know how do you report on a requirement artifact in DNG that has the format of module. My specialty really isn't in DNG; it's more in RTC. So I did have to reach out to one of my colleagues to look at this for me. Basically, they're using in 601, they're using a module to represent the requirement specification document in DNG. They're using a custom requirement artifact in DNG called business requirements document, which is a type module. It contains all individual business requirements artifacts and some other supporting artifacts. The business requirement artifact has a bunch of custom attributes added to it to categorize it between products, features, and releases. But what they're basically saying, I did go into a little bit more detail, but basically what they're saying is they're not able to list any type, which is module. Andre, can you go to the next slide? And basically, it's regarding the custom attribute. I did work with a DNG support engineer yesterday, and we were able to see the same behavior locally. And we expect it is a defect or an RFE. I'm leaning towards RFE because I didn't see any entries for the collection custom attributes and the data warehouse tables. So that is something I am going to take action on moving moving forward with our L3 and development team to take a look at it. I do believe there's an actual ticket open for this that I was able to see, and I will be talking to that owning TSC on that. So hopefully if the person's on who sent in the question, that's the update on that one, and I'll be on that.
Hi, Chris. So this is Rohit from USG, and I actually posted this question to you. So we are already working with Cloud1, and I think Cloud1 is going to open on PMR on that, because
okay.
We are kind of a process to evaluating 602, and we are planning to move to 602. But one of the major reasons we wanted to move to 602 was this offering which was introduced in JRS 602. So we really want this feature, and I think we are already talking with Cloud1 and trying to get the PMR open with IBM on that.
Yeah, and I think that's the PMR that I actually saw, and so I'll be having a hand in that also whenever because I believe I know who's working it. So I'll work with both Cloud1 and IBM side to get that moving and kind of save us some time. Since we were already able to reproduce it locally, that should not be an issue to address to our L3 or development team for it.
That would be really great. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Okay, next slide. All right, so a common problem I see with a lot of, at least PMRs or tickets that I receive personally, is if DCC is broken, they feel that JRS is broken, or vice versa. That's one thing I wanted to kind of take a stand on with here is the data collection component kind of focuses on just collecting the data that is out there in our environment. It pulls that data into the data warehouse and it keeps it for the measurements, metrics, and trends. JRS is just the endpoint. It's just the way we pull that data and create it and organize it in a way we can use it efficiently and make a decision in our products and projects on that data. It's just a way that we can organize all of that. And I wanted to make sure that I created a slide for that because they're not the same thing, and that's something that I see confused a lot. So I just wanted to make that point. Next slide, Andrea. All right. So another common issue that I see is why is my data not showing in my report? One thing is by default there's an auto refresh that takes place every 12 hours, and sometimes you need to update the data source manually. I do have I believe I included a couple screenshots later on. But to do this, you have to be a Jazz administrator or be a report manager to do the manual update. And so that is something, if you're doing some custom attributes and you're not seeing them in the reports, this is definitely something you want to do. Next slide. Yeah, I did too. Okay, so this is basically the report builder interface. You would just go to your servo/RS, and it'll bring you here. You'll want to go into the admin section in the top or in the left-hand toolbar. If you go to that, go next. And up here, you'll see basically some configurations you can make. Importing reports. You can edit your data resources or data sources, and choose your report managers. In the top right, you will see the data sources. We will want to go into there, and you can go to the next slide. And for this install, I was just using the data warehouse, so I marked that. Go ahead. All right, and so basically, it's as simple as clicking that refresh button. What you'll get is the first time I ran it, this was a pretty simple environment. It did take a little bit of time, so I would imagine that it would take some time in a full production environment, but it does give you a successfully refreshed screen whenever you run it. So that's basically what you would want to do if you're not seeing the data that you're creating. It's just that manual run to update that. All right, next slide. So this was another question I received. how to include a manual report into a dashboard. The user was having some issues in doing that. She wasn't really too sure how to go about that. It's important to make sure that all your data model is refreshed like we just did, and that's why I kind of wanted to include that, because I'd already included how to refresh the data model. Okay, can you go next? All right, so basically you will want to go ahead and build a report. Go ahead next. It's the option on the left. For this one, I did a pretty simple, straightforward report. I was just reporting on all work items within. I was using the sample JKE banking in this building environment. But one thing you want to make sure you do is under privacy and sharing, you want to make that public, or else you won't be able to see it in the catalog, because what that actually does is that posts it to, I believe it's the report builder catalog. Once it's there, you will be able to access that, and I believe I showed in the next couple slides. Next slide. So here's my CCM JKE banking project. On the right-hand side, I'm sure you guys know, you have the add widget, so you click on that next. And here, to look to the catalog that I was going to pull up is the report builder catalog. And I chose, I just named it my report. But once I selected, I did a quick search in that catalog, pulled it up, and was able to save it to my workspace. It would do a preview, and then in the top right, you'll see that save button, which is enabled, which would be the enabled. I went ahead and I saved that, and from then on out, you will see your report in that dashboard. There's one thing I did see, which I talk about next in one of my next questions, and I saw it when I was doing it locally, and that kind of posed me to kind of look at it a little bit deeper. What happened when I added that what happened when I added that report is that it prompted me to log in again. And so I found that a little bit strange, because I was already logged into RTC, so why would I have to go and log in again? And so I did find a question out on the forums actually related to it, because I wanted to see if that was a known issue or something I was specifically running into. And when I say forum, I'm speaking about jazz.net /forum. So I did go out there and I did find an incident where a user was experiencing the same exact thing. This is kind of the scenario where they built a manual report, they added it to the dashboard, and they were seeing the error, you must log into X server to view the content. Go ahead into the next slide. I was able to find actually the solution. Basically, JRS uses open social gadgets to display the information. And so what happens is it kind of goes through a loop, receiving the HTTP 302 code. And in order to get out of that loop, it will prompt for the OAuth authentication again, which will go ahead and cause you to log in again. That was stated as working as designed by the user who went and spoke with development on it. There was an RFE enhancement request. I included it here. It is still open, but one thing that I kind of wanted to call out is because the RFE seems kind of old in my opinion, and so the reason why it was still open was because it was created out on jazz.net. Whenever you create an RFE, this is kind of just a sidetrack. Whenever you create an RFE out on jazz.net, it doesn't have a service level agreement associated to it. So what that means is I've seen RFEs out there that have been 3 years old and are just basically sitting out there. It's not that we're not looking at them. It's just that there's not any specific pressure to look at them. that's why I would urge anybody who wants to submit an RFE to submit it through our RFE community. And so that has an SLA associated to it. So I will be opening a request for enhancement under that community, and that will apply that SLA and hopefully get that looked at a little bit deeper, because I don't feel, because even if you have multiple reports on your specific dashboard that you've created manually and you do it, you will only have to log in once in order for that authentication to take place. But it's still, in my opinion, if you're already logged into RTC, you shouldn't have to log in again to view the dashboard report. So that's just another action item when I was going through this. I'm going to take just for more information. All right, so upgrading from 5.0 to 6.02. Is JRS adequate, or should I move to the Cognos connector? I mean, basically, this is a comment that I received internally, actually, and basically, it depends on your reporting needs. I use Report Builder often, and so I think 6.02, between 5.02 and 5.0 and 6.02, I think it covers most reporting use cases. I just made a couple points here. You cannot migrate the reports. They kind of just have to be rebuilt. So if you are moving from 5.0 to 6.02, I can't stress enough to test. And maybe if you have many reports or very in-depth reports that you've had on previous, like RRDI or anything before 6.02, definitely test, even if it's just a local server to test with. Okay, next slide. Okay, so is there any way to change the owner of a report or allow others to edit a report? That was a common question that I found searching through some forums. And so basically there is none to change the ownership, because once a report is created, it stays with that owner. But I mean, you can like I've stated here in these bullet points, you can set report managers who can go in and edit the information. And I saw the person who posed the question, I saw their reasoning behind we have turnover in our environments, people move on to other roles, or pursue other job opportunities. So I see the reason behind it, but that's what kind of the report managers are there for. They should be able to edit or make any modifications to whatever reports that needed to be made. Right.
We do have a quick question.
Sure.
Referring to the JRS widget login, what if we have SSO configured and you still get that error?
Yeah, because that was another thing I was curious about. I haven't had a chance to test that because I was just looking at that last night. I don't think that. I think it will operate outside of SSL, and that error will still occur. I think it's just the way the product was designed. Based on the information that I saw, I don't think SSL will address it. So that is something that I was going to bring it to, just as an offline, I guess you could call it an offline topic with a developer. I was going to just sit them down and have a discussion about it. But in the meantime, yes, I was going to create that RFE, and that was one thing I was going to kind of address in it. Because I don't think, even if you don't have SSL involved, I don't think, or even if you do have SSL involved or not, I don't think that it should prompt you if you are already logged in to the RTC interface. I think that is just not. I don't know why it was required to operate that way. So that, yeah. So if you're still receiving that, it's expected. Although I'm not sure from an end user standpoint, it should be expected that way. And so yeah, that's what I'm going to chase down for that. All right. All right. So can you go back a slide, Andrea? Thank you. Back. Okay. So basically, we can keep going forward. So basically, what these slides are showing were me adding a report manager, basically, to my project, and that would be the best thing to do. Would be just either recreate if it's an ownership problem where it's an audit that your reports are being audited. My best suggestion, if it's an owner problem, would be to recreate the report that the owner created that is no longer there. But if that's not an issue, then yeah, just assign somebody a report manager role, and they can go ahead and make any edits that you need. Okay. So this is one that came from should be one of the people registered for this meeting. So is the pie chart available for numeric measures in JRS 603? This was one thing I hadn't heard of before, and so I did test last night. I was going through it and looking at it. I did go out to https://jazz.net/RS and gave it a try, and I was able to see what they were seeing. Basically, in 603, you are available. The pie chart is available, but only in one dimension. If you change that group by section to none, then the pie chart becomes available. I did take some screenshots last night just to display kind of what I was seeing. So this is basically, this is again the JKE banking project, and I was just doing a report on tasks versus defects. And when I went ahead, and this is how it is by default. The next slide will show when you configure it to add lines and bar segments from numeric measures. If you drop down that graph type, you won't see that pie chart in there. But if you change that group data by attribute to none, if you go to the next slide, Andrea, you'll see that it does indeed appear. That I am going to look into a little bit deeper, just to get a little bit more information on it, because I do find that a little bit strange. Because I believe in 502, you could see that no matter what, and so that's either an intended change or it's not an intended change, and that's kind of what I want to look into. So that was a great question that was posed that I'm going to take on action on. All right. So what can Jazz? This is question, and the actual core of the question is a little bit different. So what can members of Jazz Users Group do in terms of report creation and configuration? The person who posed this question was actually testing in 502 iFix 05, and they noticed a series of constraints and limitations when logging in as a member of the Jazz Users Group. I did look into this for them, and it wasn't really a problem with the Jazz Users Group permissions versus a regular Jazz user. What it was actually an issue with is, this is their scenario. They had empty reports. Work items were not displaying under choose artifacts. Project areas were not displayed under choose scope. Iterations are not displayed after planned for attribute is chosen under set conditions when creating a new report. They had the practitioner's license, and so they weren't really sure why they were seeing what they were seeing. Under your next slide. So basically, unfortunately, the only information that the data warehouse keeps is the user. For a given user is the email address. So every user trying to access the data warehouse via JRS must define an email address, and this was what the user actually had. Is the user they were trying to test with didn't have an email address assigned to it, and so that's why they were seeing it. And it must be a member of the project area, unless the project permissions are, of course, opened. So that's kind of what they were seeing, is that they were seeing that for one, their user didn't have an email associated with it, and then for two, I don't believe now that I think about it. I don't believe they were part of that project, and that was something I instructed them to add them to. And then they were able to see the reports just fine. All right. And was that question 10 already? I flew through a... All right, so anybody have any additional questions? This is going to kind of be a short one. I figured it would take longer, but I think I kind of flew through them.
Hi, this is Bhaskar here from FCA. I have two questions.
Sure.
The first question, while generating some report, I observed that, if you're generating a report of task and there is some estimate, so that estimate appears in seconds, the epoch time.
Yep.
So is there a fix for that? Because ideally that should appear in hours, or maybe the way RTC display it in weeks, months, and days.
I don't know if there's a fix for that. I do have my, I wouldn't mind working with you on that, just to take a look and see. So yeah, if you want to send me a quick email, that's why I included it. Anybody who has any additional questions that you want me to investigate, I'm happy to do so.
It's very quick. I think probably you don't need my assistance for that. I mean, if you have a task in RTC, which is assigned to you, and you have estimated some effort for that, so just go to JRS, try to generate a report from there, and then include that field or estimate, and you will see the data appearing in seconds. It's very straightforward.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, and then I have another question.
Yeah, sure, shoot.
Whenever we try to create a report on JRS, then on the front view where we select the type of artifacts or type of application, so we have the RTC, quality management requirement. So is there a way I can generate a report? So for example, I have a work item in RTC, which is linked to a requirement in DNG. And, the requirement is getting validated by some test cases, which is lying in RQM.
Okay, yep.
Okay. So I tried doing it, but what happens? It's a radio button selection, and it doesn't, somehow, I could not make it done. So is it supported or it's not supported? You got my question, right?
Yeah, that. So it's validated by and so what is it that you're seeing? So it's validated by the testing, but what are you actually seeing?
If you could go back to the build report section, I can say what exactly I'm saying. The choose data stuff. I think you don't have it over here. Do you have access to JRS system?
I don't have. I do. Yes. Let me pull that up. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I have to authenticate.
Thank you.
It's the O2 system that I have. So good. All right, I'm in. Go ahead.
I'm not able to see your screen.
Yeah, I won't be able to share it, but if you walk me through, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So let me also open JRS on my end.
Sure.
Give me a moment, please.
Yeah, we were having some problem with the screen sharing earlier.
Okay,
Andre
no
has been taking over the share.
Okay, so I clicked on the option of build report.
Yep.
And then on the third accordion panel, where you select choose artifact.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so that is where you see three top level management. You have the change in configuration management, you have quality management, you have requirement management, right?
Correct. Yep.
So imagine that I have a work item. So I selected a project area which is a life cycle project, okay? And I selected a requirement. I selected a work item equal to, let's say, a task, okay? And then that task is linked to a requirement on DNG. Okay, so what I want to do, I want to generate a report having end-to-end traceability.
I get you. And you want to know if that's I would have to.
Yeah, and I could not see that because you have the you have the radio button. So the moment you select the other radio button from another group, it just simply disappears.
Yeah, right. And I see what you're saying. I don't know if that's going to be coming down the road or that's something currently, because I'd have to let me work, because I'm already working with DNG currently on some of these other questions. Let me see if they know about anything regarding that, because I see where you're getting at in terms of cross-product reporting. So,
I mean, see, yes, that should be the real use of reporting, right? I mean, I don't get entire data by just generating a report of all my tasks unless or until I see these are the requirements and these are the test cases for that. And this is the status of the requirement. This is the status of the test case.
Chris, I think I can help you. So,
sure.
Is a requirement like your task is linked to a requirement and your requirement is linked to a test cases, right? That's what
right.
You're trying to do. So you can do that. The current JRS capability allow that. So what you need to do is start with report with work item, select work item as type, and go to next. And then on the project area, select all the 3 project areas. You select your requirement management project area, RTC project area, and RTL project area. Click on next, and this is where they'll give you a traceability option, right? The first one would be your work item, the task which you have selected. And from there, there's a relation which says all related requirements. So select that one, click on OK, and this is where you'll get your requirement column, requirement table linked to your task. From that requirement, you'll get another option to select further traceability. So there, select validated by test case, right? And you'll get another table which is test case. So you'll have 3 tables now with you. You have a task table, you have a requirement table, and you have a test case table. You also have an option to set up the mapping, where you can make it list me requirement which has a validated by test case link me requirement which is optional, which does not have, and link me requirement which is like you don't care. List me all the requirements whether it has a linked test case or it has not a linked test case. So it does support with 601. It does support with 602. So that kind of linking you do on the traceability section, which is the third one while you are building the report. So it does support. But continue.
Yeah, I was when you were saying this to me, thank you very much for the information. But I tried this option, and what I found at that time, you can only do it with one of the products. So if I want to display the link between my work item and the test cases, that is possible. But it doesn't allow me to go from my work item to requirement and from my requirement to the test cases. It's like work item to requirement or work item to test case.
Oh, I mean, are you so? Okay, there are 2 things. If you're looking at a report which is linear, which shows work item linked to requirement and requirement linked to test cases, you can generate that. But if you're looking something where your work item is linked to both requirement and test cases, and this is where from a single artifact type, you're trying to generate 2 different links to 2 different artifact types. It does not support now. And this is something which even I wanted to ask from Chris. For example,
may I know who is talking?
This is Rohit Risham. I work for UHG, but I'm also an IBMer, and I've been using this tool for quite some time. So I got the sense of what you were asking. But Chris, I was actually going through all this enhancement request and what's new with 602 and all. So with 602, JRS allow us to create multiple link type of a same artifact. So for example, let's say I have a work item. Let's say there's a CRS, a change request, and currently in 601, it can only allow me to create a single link type to any of the RTC work item, let's say, related or something like that. With 602, you can create more than one link from a single artifact to the same artifact type. Like you can only create those multiple links to RTC work item. But there's a requirement.
Rohit, sorry for the interruption, Rohit, but I'm using 6.2.2, okay, and I think that's not appears to be working in that way. I mean, if I could share my screen, I can show that to you. So what you can do, if you select a work item, then you select the link type, okay, and if you select the link type equal to track requirement, okay. So this is the only link. I mean, from requirement you cannot go to the test cases. So from work item only, you'll have to decide whether you want to see the test cases which are linked to the work item, or you want to see the requirements which are tracked by or implemented by the work item. But there is no way. But there is no way you can go like work item to requirement, from requirement to test cases.
No, work item to requirement and work item to test cases is not possible.
Right, that is possible. Yeah, that's possible. But from work item to requirement, from requirement to test case is not possible.
No. See, when you say work item to requirement, you have linked a work item table and a requirement table. And from requirement to test case, you are linking a requirement table to a test case table, which is pretty much possible. What I'm trying to say here is, from work item, let's try it in a different way. Let's say you have a requirement in place, right? And for that requirement, you have a defect link, right? And from that requirement, you also have a test case link. And you would like to have this traceability report which shows requirement affected by defect, and the same requirement is validated by test case, right? So you notice there are two different kind of links which you need in your report coming out from the requirement, pointing to two different artifact types. One is of RTC work item, another is of RQM test case, right? This is not possible currently.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, Rohit. You got it right this time.
Yeah, this is not possible currently. But what is possible now is, from the RTC work item, if you want to have a link called tracked by another work item and affected by defect, that is possible. So creating multiple link types to the same artifact type is possible. And this is something that I wanted to ask from Chris, that because this really makes sense. Having a report which shows my requirement getting affected by defect at the same time, being validated by test case on a single column, maybe in a multiple row. That is something which we could have done with RRDI. Obviously, it's a more advanced reporting capability with the report studio, but that does not, it won't get supported in 602 itself in JRS. But I could, Chris, I could frame this question in a better way and probably send it to you and have a look on this, and if possible, you could open an RFE.
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a look at that, definitely. Yeah, and if it's something if it was something that was in RDI, I definitely would like to take a look at it, because that's something that we really didn't want to do, is lose a lot of functionality between the two. We only wanted to move forward, of course. So, yeah, if it's definitely something you were able to do in RDI, I definitely want to take a look at it and see if we can get it implemented at least.
Thank you. And Chris, I do have a question. So, while you create a report in JRS, right, and when you go to this condition section, why does JRS makes it mandatory to at least select one value, right? Unlike RTC query, where I could not select any value and make that parameter as, a runtime parameter. But in JRS, you at least need to select a value, even though you make it the report user to choose it, make it mandatory to choose during the runtime, but you have to select one value in the condition. So let's say I select a condition called release. I need to select a release value to further proceed with the report creation.
Yeah, I have seen that too, and I had wondered the same thing, why that value was required. And honestly, I saw that on my own time, probably like a month ago, and I was curious about that also. I haven't had a chance to investigate it to see why that had been different, but yeah, that is on my plate. I have that actually jotted down somewhere to look at, because that was something that didn't really exist previously, and that was something I noticed when I was using the product myself and doing a reproduction. So there isn't a currently there isn't an issue open for it, but it was just something I was investigating before I was able to open the one up.
Okay.
Also, we do have a question from Sean.
Sure, Sean, shoot.
Hey, thanks. Hey, Chris. I was just wondering about, in terms of the customers you work with, do you have folks looking at not only traceability within the CLM suite, but also kind of going beyond that to pull in external data sources into JRS? And, we're wondering what kind of pattern they're following in terms of setting this kind of thing up, knowing that JRS alone can't define that level of configuration. I know you've got RRDI and Insight out there too. Just looking for maybe some pointers on good practice for setting that kind of thing up.
Yeah, typically, from my point of view, I don't really see the third-party stuff as much because it's not really something that we deal with. My current role is a support engineer for RTC. So basically, a lot of the report builder stuff is something in between RQM, Boards Next Gen, and RTC. And so I don't really see much of the third-party report builders. I do speak with some services people that do handle that a little bit more. So I can definitely get you some best practices from our service team. And if you want to shoot me a quick email on that, they'd be better implemented in, because they deal with more of the third party implementations in environments. Whereas then I kind of just handle most of the internal to CLM portion.
Makes sense. Okay. So knowing
but
that,
yeah,
then
Sean, definitely send me an email though, because I can follow up with anybody on it.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate that, Chris. So knowing that, within the CLM suite itself, do you have any recommendations on getting started on full traceability? We're looking at having RTC, DNG, and adding QM. And starting to report on all those. Do you have any thoughts on some good starter reports to look at for that?
It depends on, mostly it depends on your configuration. It's kind of a large conversation to have in the amount of time we have. So it's how, I don't know how your environment runs, so because that's something about reporting that's kind of different too, because many different organizations do it a lot of different ways. A lot of the out-of-the-box reports, though, they address pretty much a lot of the needs that I've seen from customers, just out of the box. A lot of them use like what the burn up, burn down reports in terms of that.
Gotcha.
That's the one I deal with the most is either people seeing strange behavior in regards to the burn up, burn down reports, just because that can kind of show you your progression in your project in your current iteration. So that's a lot of what I deal with is the burn up, burn down reports. But as for an overall environmental best practice, it's too many variables on environments to be able to address that, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Sure, yeah, it's a pretty broad question. But we'll probably end up taking more closer look at a lot of the out-of-the-box reports, which we haven't fully done yet. So
okay,
I appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, no problem. There are plenty out there and that are included, and I haven't really found anything that I've felt was lacking in any of the out-of-the-box reports when you're doing like cross-product, internal to CLM, cross-product reporting on any and traceability.
All right. Thanks.
Okay.
If you're a new user,
go ahead.
If you're a new user, is there any place you can go to get some basic training on how to use the report builder?
I believe the Knowledge Center would probably be the best place for that. I have seen there are some YouTube videos out there on some basic report builder stuff, but I think probably the Knowledge Center or jazz.net that is something I can definitely follow up with on myself. haven't gone out there and looked for like a new user type documentation in a while, but I'd be happy to pull something together and send it off to you. The Knowledge Center is a little bit tricky to search through, so I'd be happy to send you some links. Just shoot me an email requesting documentation, and I'll be able to provide that to you.
Thank you.
Because, I think those are valuable, especially with something that we used to have. I don't know if it still exists out there in the documentation. Something we used to have kind of walkthroughs of doing specific tasks in like JTS or RTC, and I don't know if they still exist. But it was kind of like what you would call like a lab, like a working lab, where you would follow a specific set of guideline, and it would kind of walk you through the product and doing like basic tasks. I don't know if those still exist, but I'd be happy to take a look and see if they still exist for you.
That's exactly what I'm looking for. It's been very difficult finding that stuff out in jazz.net, and then sometimes even looking in YouTube is so outdated because it's not the newest stuff.
Yeah, right. And that is during all these questions. That's what I was kind of trying to find is some of the 6.0 stuff. And I know your pain. So a lot of the stuff does reference like 5.0x and 5.02. With very little out there on 6.0, so I don't know if we need to kick it up on that knowledge aspect of it. And I am the knowledge lead for RTC, and so I can assign people to get some of that information out there. So what I will do, let me take a look and see what we have out there for beginner, new user type stuff for Report Builder. And if it's not out there, maybe we can get somebody to start creating that information for the user base. Because that is something we had in previous version, like 3.0, I think, 3.0 version. There were JTS kind of walkthroughs, RTC walkthroughs, and I don't know if there's any RRDI ones. I don't remember ever going through those, but I did remember seeing the JTS and the RTC one. And I don't know about anybody else, but that is the one way I learn best is by doing. So just reading an article, I can pull out details, but if I actually physically do it, then I retain that information automatically. So I do think those were valuable, and if I can't find them, I will try and get those created for everybody. All right.
Okay. Are there any more questions? Oh, yes. Someone has their hand raised.
Awesome.
Hi, Chris. This is Nirmal. I'm from the FCA team. I have a question.
Sure.
So we've come across a scenario in which we're trying to report on requirement artifacts. And the requirement artifacts are basically going through different states. So they go from states not started to in progress to completed. So this is a custom attribute. What we've noticed is as that particular artifact keeps getting updated, there are multiple entries in the data warehouse for it.
There's multiple entries in the data warehouse for the custom attribute? Or
that particular artifact, yes. So each time you update the artifact, an entry is made. Now the problem is you're trying to report out on all these artifacts in their latest status.
Okay. And
you can't, because what it does is, so basically you're trying to create a report which says, show me all artifacts that are in status not started, in progress, and complete. Now, since that artifact went through each of these states at one point of time, it shows up in all three segments.
So it's seeing all the artifacts, all the versions of the artifact?
Yes.
And you only want to see the
latest? Correct. So is there a way to select the top one or the latest from the UI, on the GUI? Because you could write an advanced query and do it, but I didn't come across something on the GUI where you could do it.
Yeah, I'd have to look at that to see if there's a UID or a user interface option for that. You can do it manually, but I don't know if there's a UI reference for it. And as for RQM, I'm not an RQM specialist, so but
It was for DNG. It was for DNG.
Oh, for DNG.
Yeah, it's an RM artifact.
Okay, so I could touch base with them to see if that's a possibility. And I was working I was working on it with DNG on this presentation also, just because I had some questions regarding DNG artifacts. So
Okay.
I already have a contact. So I'll hit him up and see if that's a possibility to limit that scope.
Okay. The one more thing that I have noticed recently is,
Sure.
for example, if you have a report created in JRS, right? And with now with JRS, you have the option to set legends, right? You can set colors in the legend for every enumeration, right?
Correct.
So now I've seen that the colors are often lost. Like you set the colors and you run the report and you come back and for some reason the colors are not retained.
Yeah, and
this is for 602.
Currently investigating that. I have actually a ticket open that I'm currently looking into that exact issue. Because I think I was able to reproduce it a week ago. So I don't expect that to be. I don't believe that to be expected. I'm currently investigating to see if it's a defect.
Okay. And something else, this might not be a defect or maybe something else, but why isn't there a way to set up your custom palette? For example, no matter wherever you use it, you have the same palette for all the visits. So like not started will always be, let's say, red, and in progress will always be yellow, and complete will always be green, no matter where you use it. Why isn't there an option to have a custom palette?
I'm not too sure why that.
I mean, like
probably an RFE.
Correct.
To have that custom palette, yeah. I'm not too sure why they didn't build that in.
Okay. Is that a part of the plan? Like, because you have to then set these colors each time. So I was wondering if there's a way to do it more smartly.
Yeah, and I'm sure they're probably planning on that, because I've seen other instances within the product that you can choose the custom colors. So if not, it would never hurt to submit that RFE to the RFE community, not Jazz.net, but the RFE community for the custom palette. So with the RFE, what that kind of enables you to do is work directly with development team on your concerns. And so basically you'll be working directly with development. And they have an SLA of I think 30 days to get back to you on your request.
Webinar and on behalf of Cloud One, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.